So it's a spider-like creature, Rocky, who is got rock skin, uses indestructible xenotype stuff, and he communicates with sound. Maybe, just maybe, we are created the scariest thing imaginable. Hello and welcome back to the couch. We saved you a seat. My name is Luke and today we're checking out chapter 11 of Project Hail Mary. We're doing this chapter by chapter series. If you want to follow along, there's a link to Amazon in the description. Feel free to go purchase it. It's like $12-13. There's also the audiobook. We're having a great time. And right now we're having a full-on conversation with Rocky, the space alien that you saw in the trailer. I gotta say, this is my favorite chapter so far. It's a little short, but this is my favorite chapter so far because of the sound stuff. So let's just jump in. So Ryland wakes up after 2 hours. He's groggy. He trudges back to the tunnel. Rocky's sitting there. He's still kind of hanging out, but he notices that the wall has a new structure in it, some sort of container that's got doors on either side. And on Rocky's side, it's got the atmosphere pipe that can rush atmosphere into this container. And then on Ryland's side is an airlock mechanism similar to the airlock door that's on the ship. Super interesting that Rocky was smart enough to sort of understand this. So Ryland, big brain, decides I need to speak to I need to continue my conversation with Rocky and begin to talk about mass and length, right? Because we need to start talking about Petrova line stuff. So he rushes back he puts up one finger, rushes back to the lab, grabs a tape measure, comes back, throws it into the container, airlocks it. It does its little thing. It transfers the atmosphere from the alien ship. Rocky pulls it out, and and Ryland remembers that he screwed up because there's rubber on the outside of this tape measure. And it melted due to the temperature in the other half of the tunnel. But the tape measure still works. He thinks it's made of aluminum. So before he transferred the tape measure, he demonstrated it for him. You know, I love playing with a tape measure. I've got one right here. It's like, it's super fun. Anyway, so Rocky gets this mechanism and starts, messing around with it and playing with it. And Ryland's like, great. He's playing with it. True scientist. Okay. And he starts trying to talk to him about what's on the tape measure. And he's like, right, it's like talking to a dog. Like he's having so much trouble communicating with Rocky about the tape measure. He starts to get frustrated. And I would too. 48 hours, you're a little bit groggy, you're super groggy, you've only had 2 hours of sleep, and this thing isn't paying attention to you. And Ryland's like, are you blind? And he's like, yeah. He probably is blind. His other half is dark. So that's when Ryland begins to start figuring out why he communicates with these notes. Maybe it's not light frequencies that he sees, because he just assumed that he just saw different light frequencies. But the tape measure is white with black letters, and with white being every light frequency combined and black being negative light frequency or zero light frequency, he should be able to see it visually. So then Ryland gets a bright idea. He's like, hold on. Ryland pauses and he goes back to get a screwdriver and he goes to the dormitory area and he deattaches the the door into the storage area. That's a piece of aluminum that's like a 1/16 of an inch thick, and he takes it back up into the tunnel and he holds it in front of him and they play the mimicry game again. And so he does the 1 and then he does the 3 and the 5, and the Rocky, after playing with the tape measure, looks up at him and does the same thing. So the aluminum, which blocks like 99 point whatever % of the light frequencies, didn't preclude or keep Rocky from being able to see or to view or to feel maybe the fingers. How many he was holding up. He was able to mimic through it. So that's when Ryland decides, oh, it must be sound. It's like echolocation. And that's how and that's how that kind of happens. Ryland also takes a moment and thinks, humans have been looking at the stars for, thousands of years. Of course we'd explore these bright balls of light in space. Like, what drove Rocky's people, the Iridians, into space? Which I thought was a fascinating thing. But the sound thing, for me personally, as someone who likes to sing and who enjoys things like Daredevil, which is a comic book series where a guy is blind but he still fights, I've been thinking about this kind of thing a lot. Like I'll continue because I want to come back to this. So the next part, it flashes back to. Oh, the next part, there's a pretty funny moment because Rocky uses the tape measure. It pops on him and slaps him in the hand, and he shakes off the pain. Interesting. Rocky feels pain, similar to a human, even though he's covered with like this scaly rock material. Interesting. Thought that was very interesting. I hope that's not a joke. I hope there's a point later in this where they kind of discuss, oh, right, you feel pain just like me. Like Rocky can be sad, and he can feel pain. All right, then we flash back to a courtroom. I have to tell you, while this is my favorite chapter so far, I did this as like a realist. This part, I didn't like it so much. I thought it was cool. It's a fun little segment, but it's a little forced. So we flash back to a courtroom, and in this courtroom is Strat, who is a defendant, and a bunch of prosecutors with one primary lawyer, and the prosecutors are suing, represent the IP of all of the planet. They all came together, and this one prosecution law firm represents the IP of the entire planet. And there's Strat sitting on the other side, and Strat's sitting there, and she's kind of just twiddling her thumbs and working on her screen, and the prosecution begins this monologue of how important IP is and blah, blah, blah. And Strat asks, and at this point, for a second time, can this be dismissed, please? And the judge was like, sure, but on what grounds? And then Strat begins her monologue, which is essentially, we are trying to gather all of the best possible resources that humans have ever come up with to help these 3 astronauts run experiments in space we haven't even conceived yet. We need them to be in the best position possible to succeed, or we all die. I don't have time for this. But also, just so you know, because they have a counter argument, and just so you know, I have a document here. It's a preemptive pardon. Oh no, she's personally immune to all persecution for any crime in the world, signed by NATO and ratified by the US Senate. Also, she has a preemptive pardon for the president for everything. She can legitimately do anything. Also, it sounds like her budget is endless. She is untouchable. The first untouchable person I've ever read in fiction. Kind of a boss move. As we move forward, Strat begins to leave. The judge is like, you will stay for the entire proceedings or I'll bailiff. And she's like, I don't think you will because I have the US Army. Then 5 dudes show up and are like, I have the Army. And she says, you and what army? And then she says, because I have the US Army and they're a pretty damn good army. This scene is for sure going to be in the movie. Not my favorite. Anywho, we go back to the president, and Ryland's working on a laptop, trying to discern if he can find some program that can help him communicate with Rocky, of course, through some sort of sound receiving and pushing out. And he finds a program where he can play a C major chord and it plays CEG, which is a CEGC is a C major chord, and he's able to use that program, and he tapes on this laptop. He tapes a spreadsheet on the other side, and so he tapes a laptop on the other side that's got Excel on it, He grabs his laptops and he flies back to the tunnel where Rocky is gone. So then Ryland's like, well, I assume that I've only been talking to one being because it's got the exact same markings all over it. It's a big assumption for me. We don't want to assume that everyone doesn't look alike, okay? But he's probably right. It's probably just one person. And but he's gone. And so he assumes that there is a rest period that needs to take place for their race as well. He's pretty exhausted. So he does a few things. He goes and gets a camera from the lab and places it in the tunnel so he can see like a security camera. And then he takes Rocky also left his instruments there. That's how he knows he's in okay company. He's probably just resting. And then he goes back to the laptop and discerns exactly how long, via the Excel formula, how long 8 hours would be on that time rotary thing that the alien has, and is able to go and get some popsicle sticks and create the symbols and attach them to each other in order. So that way he can put them in order and place them and tape them on the wall, and he'll know exactly when he's going to be back. Pretty smart. I don't think I would have thought of popsicle sticks. I probably would have. I don't know. Ryland's incredibly thoughtful. So then he decides he's going to go to sleep. He's going to try to catch 8 hours. And he goes back to the bunk, and he actually goes to sleep and actually gets in the bunk and actually gets in the thing. So that's the end of the chapter. I imagine we're going to begin the next chapter with a tap, 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 of course. But look, going back, this is my favorite chapter because of the sound stuff. My brain immediately went to places that have to do with atmosphere, right? So sound waves travel at different speeds per atmosphere. Okay, so sound at sea level, it travels faster than it does the higher up you go, right? There's less atmosphere the higher up you go. So it's interesting for me thinking about this Iridian race or whatever may be evolved on a planet that has, number one, a thicker atmosphere, and number two, an atmosphere that's 28 times more than Earth, right? O2, nitrogen, whatever's in our atmosphere, isn't nearly as big or have the atomic weight as ammonia. So that, on top of it having 28 times the pressure, the air pressure, the ammonia pressure, would make those sound waves travel so much quicker. Of course, if we're talking about humans, of course, you'd be able to sense prey at that pressure level much faster than you'd be able to see light travel. Well, not much faster, but a good bit faster. You'd be able to feel the sound waves. Very interesting. I've often wondered if Rocky can see the vibrations of the different atoms, right? Because everything vibrates at its own rate based on the periodic table. So I wonder if Rocky can sense vibrations. Super fascinating. I've always wondered, what if we could see, rather than to perceive light and how it travels, we perceive vibrations, right? So we don't necessarily see colors, but the vibrations vibrate at different levels, and we perceive the vibrations at different colors. Awesome. Weird stuff. That's why this is my favorite chapter. The stuff in the judge in the courtroom, that's for sure gonna be in the movie. And I hate that. I hate that I know that scene's coming up, because in the movie, to me, that seems a lot more dramatic, and there's gonna be music, and Strat's gonna be an absolute weapon. But in the book, it reads contrived. This would have already been handled. She didn't even need to show up. Right? She didn't need to show up and be a boss and blah, blah, blah. She didn't need to do that, so it felt a little contrived, but it's okay. It's a fun, dramatic scene. I'm into this book. It's really, really cool. The other stuff, phenomenal. I can't wait to see what kind of happens next. If he communicates via some sort of synthesizer, that would be dope. But yeah, I think that's it for me. Once again, if you want to follow along, books in the Amazon link for the book is in the description of the bio. Feel free to, or description of the video. Feel free to click on and use. I'm having a great time here. If you like this content, please like and subscribe and share. I'd be happy to communicate with anybody. I'm about 2/3 of the way through the book now. 2/3? No, 1/3 the way through the book. I think 200 pages of 500, 480, something like that. So I'm pretty far along, and we're just gonna keep this rocking and rolling. So appreciate your time, but until next time, later taters.